Hey everyone, welcome to Aerobic AF. I'm Ken.
And I'm Quinlan. We're pumped you're here. This is your home for running, fitness, and all things hybrid training.
New episodes drop weekly wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
And don't forget to connect with us on our Instagram at AerobicAFPod.
Everyone argues about group training versus solo training, like one is better than the other, but I think that's really the wrong question. The real question is, what are you training for right now? Welcome to Aerobic AF Pod. Q, something that's come up in a lot of our conversations this week, and I guess just in general, is group training versus solo training, when one is better than the other. This came up again this week as we had our first week back into a normal training block after our races last weekend in Miami.
Yeah, I honestly go back and forth on this one because I think that's exactly it. It depends on kind of where you're at and what you're looking to get out of either training or just like running in general. Because on one hand, we talk about how it's such an important part of our community and like social connections. So I think there's so much value in finding like friends or a group of like-minded people that you can meet up with even just once a week, twice a week. And that can not just hold you accountable to get your run in, but it's just a way to connect. So on that side of it, I think it's so valuable. But the more we talk about performance and honing in on your weaknesses and making sure that you're doing the right training for yourself, I think that's where the waters get a bit muddier on, okay, how much group training should you actually be doing versus solo? So yeah, I'm not sold on what I perform at best. I'll say that.
How have you found your first week back returning to kind of a normal training block? Because you've basically had back-to-back races and even another race on the schedule for next weekend that we have now removed from the schedule.
We have removed from the schedule. So yeah, I feel honestly awesome getting back into a routine. I love my routine. I love just the work and doing the training and putting in the time. It feels really good to be able to string together multiple like higher volume training weeks. So I was back to around 9 hours of training this week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, 4.5 hours running, 4.5 hours doing a million other things.
Whatever else is that you're doing.
Everything else. But yeah, we've mentioned this before. I think racing, it can be such a good tool to see where you're at and, practice race day environment, all that stuff. But if you race too much, you don't really have time to train. So that's why I decided to pull out of the Under Armour 10K, which is, I guess, this coming Saturday, because I felt like it wasn't going to allow me to get in the volume I needed this week. So I'm happy about that decision. I think you can race too much. That's definitely a thing. So I don't want to fall into that. I want to make sure I get a really solid block in before Ottawa, but mostly before Sweden. That's really the goal race of this year.
Yeah, so more or less we're looking at, I don't even know, I'd have to look at the calendar, but it's about 8 weeks.
8 weeks to Sweden.
8 weeks to Sweden.
Yeah, maybe. Ottawa's in a month.
Yeah,
it's really soon.
I know, it's middle of April, so it's actually coming up faster than we thought probably. But yeah, I think that there is a point there when you are racing a lot, and if you are tapering properly, you are actually taking a hit to your training volume.
Yeah.
And obviously race efforts are quite hard. So the recovery from that also takes a toll. You need to make sure that you're letting your body kind of rest, which also affects training volume. It can just be a lot of stress when you have a bunch of these back to back, and you coming off the Houston race and then the Miami race. It's just a lot of
travel. It's a lot of travel.
True. The jet lag
throws a wrench in your routine and structure. So, but another thing that I do want to mention for transparency purposes is that we've talked about A goals and B goals on the calendar, but and this one was always a B goal. Like this 10K was a B goal because it was kind of awkward timing in general. But I felt like I wouldn't be able to go into the race fully tapered if I wanted to prioritize my training volume for my A race. I knew that. But I also knew that my mental state right now cannot handle a race result of a B race. Like, I knew it was going to be slower than what a goal race would be, and
so
I just couldn't take that hit.
If you go out there and run 38 minutes, you're going to feel bad.
Yes.
Which is still a really fast time, by the way.
And I think sometimes you need to know where you're at mentally, physically, and prioritize that, even if it, derails the training plan the race plan. So it also is, good to be making that type of decision because I don't want to dig myself into a hole where I'm lacking confidence and lacking trust in my fitness. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And I'm honestly excited to just put my head down and train.
Yes. So the reason that this topic kind of came back around was because we were talking about the specificity required for training for hybrid fitness events like HYROX versus other events, like whether it be running or some other type of fitness event. There's so much technique, there's so much specificity in this different stations.
It's so hard. Training for HYROX is just hard. And it's not like training for running. Yes, you want to get faster and yes, you want to get stronger. But I think the more that we get into this sport, the more clarity there is in just how challenging it is to get better at it.
And the adjustments are so micro sometimes. When you look at it originally, you're kind of like, oh, there's the sled push and then there's the sled pull. And it seems pretty straightforward what these stations are.
It's like you can physically complete them and do them. You do them all the time. It's not intimidating each one on their own. But now we're at a point where it's okay, I need to also be managing my energy. And it's a very different energy management than a running race. And so, as we look back at the, topic of today on training solo versus training in group, I actually think that if you are training for a marathon or a running specific race, there is so much value in group training. I think everyone should do group training. I actually think there's a lot less value from the solo stuff. I think you can mix it in, but you are going to perform better in group training. That's my personal opinion. But for HYROX, I actually feel like there is more value and benefit to training either in a smaller group or solo because of all these things we just mentioned about how you have to focus on such specific either movements or accessory movement to support it and what you're trying to, close the gap on. And it's different for everyone. It's going to look different. And so that's something that it kind of sucks maybe a little bit to realize it because I love training in a group setting and I love going to classes and, meeting up with people and doing runs together.
Yeah, and you don't have to give all that up, to be clear. So
you don't. You don't have to just go into a cave and do it by yourself.
Yeah, before we go too far down this rabbit hole where we're mourning group training forever, let's start out with just kind of framing this whole thing. Basically, what it comes down to is the wrong environment can stall your progress.
Totally.
Whereas the right environment can unlock your potential.
Yeah, so you want to find what that is for you, and it might change season to season, right?
Yeah, and goal to goal. Different goals are going to require different techniques or different structure. We talk about it all the time in how we're planning our blocks.
Yeah.
It depends on what your goal is at the moment. So it's not as if group training and solo training are opposites, but they are tools. So really what you want to be making sure is that you are using the right tool for the job being whatever goal you're working towards at the moment.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's where it's tough right now because oftentimes I think you know what you need to be successful, and oftentimes it's the thing you're not doing or the thing you're avoiding. At least that's my experience. And so I know that I would benefit from a couple more sessions, like probably even just the two of us or a small group where we're really focusing on, like we've talked about, like sled pull, burpees, sandbag lunges, like for me specifically, that I need to really focus on. But yeah, that means that I maybe forego some of the group training in order to do that.
Yes. Okay, let's start here though. I think we talked about this before, that being clear on your why. We talked about this quite in depth a couple episodes ago, but I think it is very important that you understand your decision making and you are understanding what you are training for, because this is going to influence in a large part whether you're doing individual or whether you're choosing group. It's like whether or not you're doing it for health or if you're doing it for identity. Be clear on your reasoning.
Yeah.
Because this is going to help you understand which kind of training is good for you.
Yeah. We talked about this before, how my reasoning is longevity, but now my reasoning is also performance.
Yes.
And so that's where...
And luckily for you, those are not exclusive.
Not
they can
exclusive.
coexist.
Yeah.
Performance and longevity.
And you are also on the performance train.
Yes.
So we share that one.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that both those goals are important to me.
Yes.
As a 35-year-old athlete, I do have to be cognizant of the way that my body is feeling and making sure that I'm taking care of it, recovering. It's like I feel really great, but I know it's a fine line because I don't bounce back or recover as quickly as I did in my early 20s.
So true. I think you're good at that though. Like even today we set out to run just like an easy 10K with the group, and one of our friends, Dana, was just adding on another 2K to get to 60 minutes, like a 12K run. And then I think I said to you, I was like, we could do that too. Like, want to do that? And then you were just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Absolutely
That's
not.
like, we've already run like 40K this weekend. Like, that's too much.
Yeah.
I'm
40K
like, you know what?
in the last 3 days is was plenty for me.
I'm like, you know what? That's right. Like, I also have had some pretty big days the last, like, honestly, kind of 4 days. And so this was a good decision. But that's also where, sometimes you get swept away with what the group is doing, and it can be difficult to say no.
Yes. So another thing that's important to be clear on is like what phase you're in your block. Are you in a building phase? Are you in a maintenance phase? Are you in a recovery or reset phase? Just understand where you're at, because those different points throughout your block will also influence your decisions, your decision making. If you're in like a recovery reset, like maybe group training is fine because you don't have to be as specific and you're just maintaining fitness.
Yeah, just kind of doing what feels good.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't need to be hammering like 2 or 3 strength workouts a week to maintain. You can just kind of maybe hit like one group class, and we're very lucky at One Academy Life, a big part of our community, our gym. We are supported in that way where the class structures are very intentional. They're changing all the time.
Yep.
So we can just kind of pop into a strength class, get a really well-rounded strength workout in about an hour, and then be on our way.
Yeah.
So that comes down to also the community being important and making sure you're in the right environment, that we have that available to us.
Yes, I agree. I think in a recovery phase, though, I would caution with group training, because I've definitely not done a recovery phase properly because I get carried away with just
sucked into the workout.
I'm like, oh, my friend's doing this and another group of friends is going on a run on this day, so then I'll do that. And then you end up having like actually a pretty substantial week.
This is a great point, because I think that this is one of the places where group training can really thrive, is it can really amplify your effort.
Totally.
So you can push harder, you can go faster, and sometimes it's easier to even suffer more when you are, and I know we say suffer, it's like that sounds so bad, but
I know.
You can sit in it.
Suffer.
In the group class, and there's some solidarity there when you know that everybody around you is doing the same workout and probably feeling a similar way, or maybe even worse, and you're just like able to draw off that energy in the class and draw off the coaches, it can be really helpful.
This is why I think that especially for runners, group training is so important, because if you are training for a marathon, the amount of time you have to dedicate to running is crazy. It's a lot. And so when you're doing those workouts, it can be lonely and boring and monotonous. And there's only so many playlists that you can curate to motivate you. So I definitely think that for those like people, it's important to find at least a group that you can either do a workout or a long run with every week. And that's a good way to, amplify your training and get that work in. I'll say also in the classes, when I see other people pushing hard, it makes me push hard as well. So I definitely use that to my advantage. I'm like, okay, sometimes I need it to help me go harder. And sometimes I need to block it out to allow myself to stay in my lane and do what I need to do and not get swept into the moment.
So you touched on a couple situations there.
I did. I really went off.
It's okay. I'm going to keep us on the rails here.
Thank you.
We're going to be.
I have so many thoughts.
Fine.
I have so many thoughts on this topic that.
I think it's for the listeners that already kind of realize that this is like more or less our structure at this point is like cue reflects, and then we try to keep the show moving keep it on the rails. I think that some areas that group training really thrives are in the ones that you had just said, in conditioning workouts, threshold workouts, and if you have a bunch of competitive athletes in the space.
It can
great. Be really,
it's so
really helpful.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, because oftentimes it's like you're not just rising to the programming that's available. It's like you're rising to the room and who's in it around you. And
perfect example of aura farming.
I'm not sure that's the correct way to use that, but we're gonna move on. There is accountability when you're around those athletes in the room, and we've all felt this. It's like if you go to a 745 class at our gym, it's oftentimes more serious, more competitive athletes. If you're going to the 12 o'clock, it's a much more laissez-faire, casual vibe in there.
Yeah, so you pick the time that works not just for you, but maybe what you need out of that class, out of that day. Sometimes you are just looking for like a more fun social energy, and that is great. But yeah, I think something I actually miss is having a really solid group of people at the same running pace to run with. And I know, right now it's a little bit harder because I do feel like I'm alone in my running paces, especially because you're getting faster. We can't exactly run together in the same way anymore. So I miss having that. And I think that's something you can get with a larger group, because oftentimes there's just at least a couple of people that are at your same fitness level, but it does get challenging when the group doesn't match your fitness. So I just want to call that out as well when we're talking about how the effort can be amplified. You want to make sure that you're not, pushing yourself too hard to stay with the group when it's not your right fitness level. So
correct.
That's something to be cautious of.
This is definitely something I was guilty of earlier on in my, I don't know, I don't want to call it like a career per se, but like earlier on when I was delving into like more competitive athletics again, I think the inclination is to overextend. You have to be careful not to do that, because it'll actually leave you less available for future workouts if you're digging deep.
Unnecessary fatigue.
I know. I used to think that like the more pain that you're feeling, it's like you're getting the most out of the workout. It's gonna be so good because you're hurting so bad.
But you don't want to bleed that much.
No, and I realize that now, that actually you're better off to save a little in the tank and then even just add like another easy session later. Like I just feel like I'm the number one spokesperson for like easy volume at the moment. I've really let off the gas. Quite a bit, probably, since last summer.
It's like a canon event. You have to, sometimes you watch people go through it and you're just like, oh, okay, they're going to learn this one. whether it takes them a month, a year, they'll figure it out.
And worst case, you end up getting injured. Like we've seen people sometimes doing like 3 or 4 hard like
efforts a
day. And it's like, and
even the double threshold work, we were talking about this, like that's, kind of the popular thing you see on Instagram.
People are very excited about double threshold days right now. Very excited.
Like they are really hard on the body. So yeah, you have to be careful with, pushing yourself and using others to motivate and others to hold you accountable, but also still listen to your body. And I think that's where it gets a little bit challenging because you don't necessarily know where your line is until you cross it.
Yes. So to that point, accountability is another positive that comes from group training. It's like you can just show up even when motivation is low. Yeah, my favorite part too. You sign up for the class, you get past that 12-hour mark, you aren't getting your refund, and you better be there. And sometimes even just getting in the door is the hardest thing to do.
The no refund policy is actually
it's amazing.
So good for accountability. You're like, I don't really want to pay to not work out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, that would be silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually love the 12 hours and then you're locked in.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's great. It's also good for if you have busy schedules or, as we were saying before, in the early stages of your athletic career, or you're kind of transitioning into like being a more competitive athlete or training more, group training, amazing.
Totally. Yeah. And it's such a good way to learn and absorb information from others too. So I know it can be really intimidating to join either a run club or even a gym for that matter, because
I was so scared when I first transitioned from Good Life to One Academy. And I was like, oh my God, who are these people?
Especially because I think there's 2 reasons why I think it's hard. One is that the level of fitness is impressive. It's like not just at One Academy, but in many gyms you go and you see people who have been going for years every week. And so it's difficult not to compare yourself to that. But then you also look at like a running team or a run club and you think, oh my God, they're running so much faster than me. I won't be able to keep up. It's going to be so embarrassing. And everyone appears to be best friends. So like, what am I doing here? And
everybody's best friends and they're so fast.
Yeah, it's really hard. But like, I'll speak from like personal experience. I joined a run team in 2019. I didn't know anyone. It took me a while to actually make friends, like honestly, probably about a year or longer. And you just have to keep showing up, and like exposure is the best way to like crystallize those bonds. Mm-hmm. And even when I went to One Academy, and we've talked about this before, like I was going for about a year and a half pretty consistently. And I didn't have like friends at the gym, right? Like I just showed up, did the class. Maybe I'd see a couple people that I knew loosely, but I wasn't like going to meet up with them or planning something or doing anything after. I was kind of in and out. So I'm just saying that for everyone listening, that you don't just make friends day one, and you shouldn't expect that, but also every single person that is in those like gym friend groups or run friend groups, they're in them because they've been doing it for years. And so that could easily be you too. Like you can do that. You just have to show up.
Yes. And this is one of the best parts about training in the group environment, is that it does provide that social and that emotional anchor.
Oh yeah, it's so essential.
Especially if you're consistent in your class times, you'll see the same people. They have their routine. They have the same classes all the time. We see the same people at 7:45.
And that's how you become friends. Because you're like, oh, we've seen each other like 3 times a week for the last year. I guess we could hang out.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it definitely makes it more sustainable in that sense. You definitely feel less isolated, and it's just pretty available to consistently show up in that way over a long term.
Yeah. And I think too, like the older you get, you do have limited time to not just work out, but see friends and socialize. And so something that I've found to be very helpful is kind of killing two birds with one stone, where now I socialize when I'm working out. And that is bringing like a lot more fulfillment in that like hour and a half, versus if I was just running by myself for an hour and then had to go rush and meet a friend for coffee downtown. Like it would have been like, it's so much more difficult to manage.
A lot of my social time is doing workouts with my friends.
Yeah.
Like that's how, like, it's like, we'll just go hop on the bike, chat for an hour and a half, and then that's it. And then we go on our separate ways.
Yeah. It's like meeting up with a friend to go on a long walk and get coffee. It's like a similar thing, just it's a different, I guess, medium where you're lifting weights or biking.
Yeah. And I think that also one thing that's nice, and we're kind of getting a little off topic here, so I'll bring it back in a second, but is that everybody's always present in the space. There aren't any phones.
Yes,
like
digital detox.
Yes, nobody's taken away. That everybody's in the present moment on these runs or in these workouts. Yeah. So there's no distractions. So that also kind of deepens the bonds, which is another really big positive about group training.
I'm going to add one more thing. I saw something on Instagram the other day that I thought was so funny and so true. So it was like some meme that just said, it was like me after I've spilled every secret just to keep the conversation going on a long run. And I'm like, that's so true. I feel like I oftentimes just start talking about my deepest, darkest secrets, being like, well, we have another, hour and a half to go. What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, the content, it needs to keep flowing.
It's so funny. I feel like you just you go into every corner of your life and you're like, what have we not covered today? And we actually have a running joke kind of within our friend group. Whenever some of us start talking about work, we tend to speed up. And so now we're like not allowed to talk about work.
Yeah, the pacing drops. It'll go from a nice like 5:15, 5:10 like kilometer pace.
We start venting.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it drops down to 4:45. And we're like, somebody started talking about work
again.
Yeah,
be like, who's all riled up? We got to reel them in.
Yeah. So we talked about some of the reasons group training is great. There are some reasons though, and some situations where it can fall a little bit short. We touched on this before, but particularly in the hybrid environments, there can be a lack of specificity in these workouts when we're talking about targeting weaknesses specifically as an individual athlete.
Yeah, I think something that I was doing a lot of, especially last year and kind of in the last few months, was just hopping into random people's workouts. Like someone would post and say, I'm doing this at this time. And it all looked good on paper. I'm like, sled push, great. Wall balls, great. Running, great. I'll participate and, I'll just do what you're doing. And so kind of falling victim to someone else's plan. And it was helpful at the beginning to get at least myself kind of familiar with the movements and stuff like that. But yeah, now it's definitely something where I'm like, you know what? I think I want to have my own programming and I want to be the one that tells someone, you're welcome to join me, but this is what I'm doing and I'm not changing my plan.
You come up with ideas based off of your race results and what you know as an athlete that you struggle with.
Yes.
Like this is, again, one of the main reasons that this topic surfaced again, was we were talking about how basically for us as athletes, HYROX race comes down more or less to 3 stations. It comes down to the sled pull, the burpees, and the lunges. Of course, 100 wall balls at the end is also always going to be difficult, but more or less, those 3 stations are the ones that can kill you. They'll burn you out. They get your heart rate jacked
Every
up.
time.
They fill up your legs and your body with lactic acid. They can be real destroyers. So for us, it's really important that we be training those a little bit more aggressively and getting really used to that stimulus. Not that we don't do it in the classes, but we need to do it in a more similar environment to a race.
In a more specific, intentional way.
Yes.
And so that's where, I think for the next 2 months, it's going to be like less group training and more prioritizing this. But you can still leverage group training in other ways like easy running or long runs, even a run workout. And so I think it's just making sure that when someone else invites you to a workout or says they're doing something, check yourself and really make sure that you are doing what's best for you and not just kind of jumping in. And maybe you want to jump in because you want to hang out with your friend or do it for social reasons. But I think if you do that too often, you run the risk of just being a bit more confused about your own training, which is exactly where I am at right now. So we had a big existential crisis of like, oh my God, I don't trust my training. It's so chaotic. I'm just doing a million things all the time.
And there is a lot of hats to wear in this environment. So it's just
hard.
dialing in like a little bit more strategically. And I think it's going to pay big dividends to do that.
Totally.
We talked about how the environment can give you more motivation. I do think that there is an element of ego and comparison that can come into play when you're in group training. And sometimes this can lead you to pace off of others instead of where you're at physiologically, and oftentimes lead you to overreach to try to keep up with people in the environment when maybe that's not what's best for your training.
I love watching some of the men in our gym all like race each other during the workouts. Specifically on the weekend, we have Everest, which
that
is
will be back soon.
A really popular class at One Academy, and it's like a 2-part class. So you have 45 minutes of just kind of I'll say like a normal superset, and then you move into the finisher, which involves running and station work.
Yeah, it's like a big chipper.
Yeah, and it's an awesome workout, but it's pretty funny watching everyone just go pedal to the metal as if they're racing a HYROX.
Yeah. No, it's definitely one of those workouts where you can overextend.
And everyone's just like dead at the end, like dead.
Yes, I'm definitely a victim in that class in particular of, I don't want to say overextending, but it's like you will sends to try to finish in like the top 5 for sure. And it feels bad if you do not.
I know, it does. Yeah. And that's
especially for people who are stronger runners, because there is so much running involved. It's like, yeah, it's easy to go a little bit hot and maybe cook the buck against yourself.
I think that's where, too, when we look at like group training for running specifically as well, you do find your pace groups. And so every week you kind of know more or less who you're going to be running with. And when one person in your pace group starts to just like send it or kind of go off, that can also hurt the ego, because they might just be either progressing and they're going to move up a pace group, or they're having a really good day, or they're being stupid and you should not follow them and you should not go with them. So those are the little games you have to kind of be mindful of with group training, and make sure that you're really intentional about what you need to do and not compare yourself to others. And that will be the way you maximize your own performance and output.
Yes. So always just be cautious, because you will have blind spots as far as your recovery is concerned in the group training. So make sure that you're pulling back a little bit. If everybody's sending it, it can be hard to do that. But just don't overreach. Because if you're just overreaching to try to keep up, it's like you are going to potentially experience burnout, and it just won't be good for your growth as an athlete or your long-term, just like balance, recovery, health, the entire thing.
Yes.
So let's move on to the second part here, solo training. And if you know anybody who is working with group training, solo training, if they're trying to figure out the difference, share this podcast with them. Toss us a follow on our Instagram at aerobicafpod. Solo training is really great if you are trying to be very specific. So this is the opposite, because everything in solo training should be tailored to you individually as an athlete. That means the load is tailored, the pace is tailored, the rest is tailored to where you are at physiologically.
You know what? This actually just sparked something for me because I've been, preaching for the last like 20 minutes about how awesome group training is for running. And I actually think that there's a lot of benefit to be found from like a one-on-one coach where your coach is giving you a specific workout based on how you thrive, not how the group thrives.
And your numbers. Like, a good coach will be able to look at your heart rate and look at your pacing and look and interpret that data and understand exactly where you are. So that you are running at the proper threshold paces and that you are running at the proper, if it's at the proper interval paces, to make sure that you are getting the most out of every workout and that you aren't overextending or underexerting. It's like there's a lot of gray area there, and it can be hard to hit the bullseye by yourself.
Totally. And so, solo training doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a coach or that you don't run with others sometimes, but I think when you have that one-on-one relationship with a coach, it can really unlock more potential because, like, for me, I'll, again, talk about my experience, but I did group...
That's what you're here for. That's why we started the podcast.
Everyone wants to hear. No, but I did group training for quite some time, and I actually... I kept getting injured. Like, I was just, I was doing these huge workouts and huge long runs, and it was not like jiving with my body. But my coach at the time, like Rajan with Pace in Mind.
Great coach, by the way.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Shout out to
and
Rajan.
He gave me a very specific race or workout plan that did look different from the other, like, kind of rest of the group. And it was a shorter, like, smaller volume. So instead of 8 to 10K of work, it would be closer to 6K, but the paces were faster. So I was training more intensity, lower volume, and that translated really well. And it's actually one of the biggest things I learned about myself is that type of training works well for me versus doing these massive workouts all the time. So I do think that there's value in exploring that, and that can be very difficult to do when you're in a group and one coach is, giving everyone the same workout on, like, Thursday morning, or everyone's doing the same long run. And yes, you're at different paces, but you might be able to get more out of yourself if you were by yourself.
Yeah, it's an interesting point is that every athlete is going to respond to different stimulus in their own way.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, maybe higher volume at threshold is really great for one athlete, but it's not as great for you.
Exactly.
And maybe somebody responds to 400 meter intervals, like, better, and their performance is better than doing something like mile repeats. It's very individual. So you should be aware of how these different stimuluses are working for you. I think for us specifically with the running, we very rarely run anything longer than like a mile interval. Maybe it might be like a 2K interval. Otherwise, you're kind of getting into more of like a tempo. So a little bit of a slower pace.
We've just been living in like mile repeats and kilometer repeats for a long time.
I love the 1K repeat. That's such a nice zone. It takes about just under 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you get a little bit of recovery, like one of my favorite workouts that I've done recently was the 8x1K with 75 seconds rest.
I want to get one of those in soon.
And it felt really good. It was like a nice cut down, 3:48 pacing to start. And then I cut it down to 3:38 on the last rep. It was just like a really great workout. Yeah.
That's a good confidence builder workout as well, because it's not long enough that you're overextending, but it is just long enough to get that like adaptation that you're kind of looking for when you're around those paces, like your threshold and then just below.
It did give me confidence going into the HYROX Miami race, which we will discuss in our next HYROX happy hour.
We will finally discuss it soon.
We're going to record it right after this episode. We're ready to go.
We have a lot of thoughts on it.
But yeah, so individual training, great for independent strength development. If you're just building your aerobic base, running at paces that are good for you or cycling at paces that are good for you, however you want to build that. If you're doing specific skill work, so we talked about this before, hybrid racing is insane. The amount of technical adjustments that you can make for each movement. Like even just talking about the adjustments that I've made, let's just say in the last 3 months to my races, It's like I have adjusted my lunges, the depth of which I step, and I adjust that on every step to try to oscillate between different parts of the muscle groups so I don't cramp.
Yeah.
I've adjusted my burpee form. I've gone from the step up to the knee up because I think it conserves energy and is a lower RPE, rate of perceived exertion, and hopefully it makes my heart rate drop a little bit more. I've adjusted my wall balls. I am now starting to squat before the ball comes down, so that I can kind of harness that power a little bit more in my legs. It takes some of the pressure off my shoulders, so that was actually the part that was getting more fatigued in those races, was my shoulders burn out, not my legs. So this is loading what is a big part of my engine, the bottom half. Sled push, I'm taking smaller steps now on the sled push.
Well, look at you go. But it's so many wins.
Okay, but you're thinking, like, the point of this is, like, these are things that I had never considered before. And now it's like, when you're thinking about it, it just seems so obvious that you do need to find the most efficient way to move.
You've actually had, I think, a number of sessions where it's been like maybe one or two of you in the gym, like open gym, working on all of this. So that's also probably why you've been able to actually hone in on some of those adjustments and practice it, because you're not doing the group setting as much. So I think it's one thing to know you need to make the adjustment, but you've actually been able to practice it.
Yeah. And I think that the confidence that you can build in those individual sessions when you're being specific goes a long way.
Totally. So yeah, that's something that we now really recognize is important if you want to get better at HYROX specifically, or any other hybrid race. It is very different from running, and you can't just apply the same concepts because it's a different demand on the body ultimately.
It is. Okay, so solo training, way more precise. I think it's a great place to learn your real RPE and learn where that line is, learn how you can toe that line, how it feels to toe that line, coming in and out of station work specifically, or running at certain paces. Really good for that. And also, if you're dialed in on your body, you can start to understand the way that you're feeling and understand what you need to recover, or where that line is, so that you don't step over it into a zone where...
Like the gray zone.
Yeah, where now you have gone too far and you will never recover.
Yeah.
In that specific workout.
I also think, kind of tangential to this one, what's important in solo training is practicing being on your own out there, because oftentimes you are racing by yourself, and maybe you're hanging on to a couple people, or you have others around you that are, kind of holding your pace. But it's really important to be able to sit in that by yourself and learn how to do that. We talked about that in last week's episode, how the pain cave is trainable. This is where you train it when you're on your own.
Yeah. And I think that there's also a fair amount of flexibility that can be involved as well in the one-on-one or the solo training. And you've talked about this before in regards to your running, that sometimes you just didn't even know what you were going to do on the day.
I know.
And you would just show up and just say, all right, I guess I'm going to do this workout today.
I've been bringing some of that back, actually. I did that this week.
It's funny.
I went to the track near my house. I knew that I needed to get some sort of run workout in. And my original plan was to do 3 times 1 mile at threshold, and then do some 400s at a bit faster. But I went out way too hot, so I ended up doing 3 times a mile at like 340 pace, which is about 5 to 8 seconds faster than the top end of my threshold. So it was way too fast. I completely gassed myself out, so I did not do the 400s. But it did feel good to kind of just, in general, just do that workout kind of on my own. I think I needed it to, again, learn to hurt by myself, learn to sit with it. And that was helpful for me. But I did used to do that a lot, just to go by feel, which we've talked about that being a bit dangerous, as it allows yourself to maybe negotiate. But it's important, I think, to be able to make those adjustments and not dig yourself into a deeper hole just because you're trying to keep up with the group or keep up with a friend. So yeah, those are, again, the dangers of group training.
Yeah, or solo training.
Or dangers of both.
Yeah. So this is also a key point that I want to highlight about solo training is you definitely need to make sure that you are motivated individually to make this work for yourself. Like, because it is hard to truly max out that effort and really easy to just like cut reps or hold back in the session when you are by yourself.
Yes, totally is. So it's, as much as we say it's a way to train that muscle, I think you have to be aware of your own limitations here. And if you are in a phase where maybe you do need to lean on others a bit more to get that, do that. And don't just force yourself to like do everything alone.
Yeah. Whatever session you are going to show up for and actually execute to the best of your ability is the better session. So if that's group session, great. If you need that stimulus,
whatever
great,
keeps you consistent.
Exactly. Whatever is feeling good. If it's an individual session and that's what you need and you have the ability to show up and hammer that, great, do that. But be honest with yourself about what's going to keep you consistent, because ultimately that's what moves the needle over time.
Yeah, the more we talk about different, types of training, ways to improve, ways to get faster, the biggest secret is that it does just take time, and it takes being consistent and putting in the work week over week, month over month, and even year over year. That is what is going to get you to that next place. And so these are all ways that you can, modify that and unlock different aspects of yourself, different levels of performance. But ultimately, I agree. You have to just do what keeps you consistent.
I think a couple other things that can be difficult at times if you're just doing the individual training versus the group is decision fatigue.
Oh my God, that's me.
Yeah, because in this situation, you are the coach, you are the athlete, and you also have to be your own motivator.
Oh my God.
Because you don't have Coach Jesse or Coach Nick or Coach anyone getting after you to motivate. It's you just have to dig deep. I think that's what I feel
right now. I'm tired. And even we were on our long run yesterday, and Ken was kind of listing off this workout or things that he thinks I should be doing to get better. And I think I just turned to you. I was like, "You're hired."
I'm the coach. Coach Ken, my first client.
That sounds good to me. I'm like, you just tell me what to do and I will execute, because I am tired of this.
Yeah, and it is hard. And
I might be sounding like I'm joking, but I am serious. I do want someone to give me a bit more structure.
It definitely helps.
But I don't want to pay someone. So.
Well, that's a part of I'm the perfect guy.
That's why
I'll
you're
do
hired.
it for free. The isolation, I think, is also tough here. And this is part of when you're having to be your own coach, your own athlete, your own motivator, or in phases where maybe you're just in a longer base phase, or even if you have an injury where you can't train, that can be quite difficult as well, especially when you're used to being around the friends and the community in group training. Yes. That can be quite difficult as well.
Yeah, especially if you're injured. I think, I know for me, I had to, delete Strava, mute Instagram, and do all these big things just so I wasn't being exposed to it, because it was very isolating and difficult just being out on my own. But I also think for anyone that's coming back from injury, you do have to be cautious of how much you do with the group, how much you do alone, giving yourself some opportunity to socialize, but not letting it derail your comeback from injury. So it can be, again, just a difficult thing to navigate. And we recognize that FOMO is very real here. And yeah, so making sure that you are, also maintaining some friends that don't run so you can hang out with them when you're injured.
That's right. Or even just hang out with your running friends outside of the
or that
just do what you gotta do.
Go to brunch, go to coffee, get drinks after work, do anything else. And that actually is really nice. I love doing that.
Okay, so the main reason that this episode came up was specifically because we were talking about hybrid athletics. And I do think that you need to be very specific here. One thing that is always talked about in this environment is compromised running. And this is quite a hot topic. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I generally think, if I was going to say it succinctly, it's important to get this in when you get closer to the event so you're used to the feel and you have the confidence. But I do think that training running in a vacuum is more important, and just getting the run workouts in on fresh legs and just have a running workout being the point of the workout is the only way to get faster.
Yes, I totally agree. Having a specific running block is going to move the needle more than compromised running sessions week over week. I also listened to the RMR podcast with like Meg Jacoby. I don't know what episode it was on. It just kind of came on automatically. And she brought up a really good point. Now, she is also she's a world champion for HYROX, so she knows what she's talking about here. She said that early on in her HYROX training, she was doing a lot of compromised running. A lot of these sessions where you are running in and out of the station work. And that was, building up maybe more confidence, if anything, that you can run after significant fatigue. However, something that she cautioned was that these sessions are very difficult to know how it's going to affect you a few days and the week after. So oftentimes you will do too much in these sessions and get carried away with the effort, and it will derail the rest of your week, maybe even unbeknownst to you if you just keep executing your, programming as needed. But if you're not able to do the rest of your week in a quality fashion, then the compromised running session is completely useless, right? Like, it's not actually helping you and it's hurting you. So I agree. I think we need to shift out of that. And we haven't done a quote unquote compromised run session in like 4 months. And you ran an amazing race last weekend. Or maybe you've done a handful of workouts.
I've touched a couple of them. But
okay, but not that many.
No, not as many. Like, in the summertime, we do a lot more.
Damn, I've done 0.
Yeah.
I'm realizing now, I'm like, oh my God.
No wonder you're having trouble in that pain cave.
I'm like, I need to do... Yeah, you do need to do some, but
yes,
you don't have to go crazy.
So I did have a pretty good race, which we'll get into the details about. But yeah, I haven't really trained compromised running hardly at all.
You've done a really strong, I actually think, running block.
Yes. Like, there's been a lot of, that's been an emphasis, making sure that I'm getting 1 to 2 quality sessions in a week with a pretty solid long run. And those have been non-negotiable sessions for me.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I've seen them move the needle for my running quite a bit. So that's
why we can't run together anymore.
Not that much.
Well, it's enough that I'm like, it's like that Titanic meme where she's like, Jack, don't go.
With the whistle in the water.
Don't go. You're just running away.
Yeah. It's like we're going to get to run together soon, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
You specifically need to get used to running efficiently while under fatigue for these events. So I do think that it's important to be getting some of these sessions in when you get closer to the events. But as you said, I would caution that you can overextend. These sessions are hard to recover from. And it generally, if the point of the workout is to get used to what the body will feel in the race, great. I think that's a very useful tool. But if the intention of the workout is to try to get faster or lower the speed of that you're running during the race, I think that there are better ways to do that.
And I guess this is kind of tying back to if you are doing a more compromised run session, you kind of need to do that alone or in the smaller group, right? To be really specific about it.
Yeah, and make sure that you're intentional about your paces and you aren't getting sucked into whatever else is going on in the group class, because I know I've been guilty of that.
Because it's not a race.
No, where you're running a little bit faster than what your optimal pace might be because there are competitive athletes in the space.
Yeah. And if you send it too hard on the station work in between, your next run is going to be too compromised.
Yes. So group training, or when we're talking about specifically the hybrid stuff, I do think that group training helps with intensity simulation. There is a competitive pressure in the classes, which I think can be useful for sharpening up before the race, and occasionally pushing past those comfort zones that you might have in an individual training session.
Yes.
These are things that are good. But you should be also understanding that for running economy and pacing, for station efficiency, and just specific station work that you as an individual athlete are trying to work on, and also just making sure that you have a structured progression. This is where you should be focusing on the solo stuff for these types of hybrid races.
Yeah. I also just want to call out that I think we mentioned before that doing easy volume is something you can do like with other people pretty easily. But again, just caution what your easy pace is compared to someone else's. And it should be conversation pace. So that whatever that is for you, like you just should be able to hold a conversation with that person. I know I've been in a position where I've been running with like faster people on my easy runs, and then my heart rate's like 160. I'm like, oh, that's not easy. That's like a zone 3 gray zone. So you also should, make sure that you're focused on that too, even just in like general base building, aerobic base, for not just for hybrid athletics, but running as well.
Yeah. Where do you think that group training has helped you as an athlete the most?
I think in the early days of my running training, it was really solid accountability, and it showed me what other people are doing to get the results that they were getting. So the exposure was really helpful, and the amount of just knowledge that I picked up in passing through conversation, I think was invaluable. Like I couldn't have learned everything I did by myself. So it was really a tool for that. And it also just taught me how to settle into a pace and be more controlled. Because when I was doing workouts by myself, similar to you, I was just pushing as hard as I could. Like I didn't really understand what it meant to run a specific pace for a specific reason. But then when you are in a group and you have a coach saying, run 1K repeats at 350, I was then staying at 350 and not, running 340s or something. And that actually allowed me to progress and, train consistently. So being with a group, having a coach in a group setting, that all was really helpful. I think then kind of looking at the classes, like going to the gym and doing that, I do very little when I go to the gym by myself. Like I am not there for longer than 25 minutes of quality work ever. Like ever. I find it very, very difficult to motivate myself at the gym. So that's where group training has been so helpful, because it allows me and enables me to get like that hour session in, or do 10 minutes of the superset station and lift heavier and not just kind of rush out of there. Also, like sometimes I would go with friends and we would just be talking the whole time, and I wasn't actually doing much. So I love group training for so many of those reasons, but that I think is why it's difficult to let go of sometimes, to go off on your own and do things by yourself, because there's so much value in it. So yeah, I know I could go on and on and on, but
yeah, it's all good. I'll also follow up with where it helped me the most. I think it was probably early on with just consistency. I think that showing up in that environment and being around, like when I first started doing the group training, not even at One Academy, but even at Good Life and some other places, it really got me in a consistent flow of the community and showing up and just doing the movements and showing up for the classes, for the community and everything, and you get the relationship with the instructors and the coaches, it really helped me get consistent. So I think that's where it started. Was obviously it just takes time, and the more years that you're doing this, the better results that you're going to see, because it is just a long game.
Totally.
So I think especially early on, it really helped me there. I think, well, I'll ask you this question, but I'll lead with it. Whereas it held me back, I think is kind of also ties into a question I was going to ask you, which is like, where do you think you currently are in your training phase, honestly? And I think that now, this probably applies to both of us. We are at a phase where we do have to be very specific about which sessions we're doing and what we're working on, and highlighting those weaknesses as athletes, rather than just going along with the
group training,
general training, which is great for the large mass of athletes, and generally people will improve. But I think for us, honestly, at the moment, we do have to be a little bit more considerate about what's going to be best for our development as athletes and where our weaknesses are, and actually targeting those. So I think that's kind of where we're at. And I don't want to say that I'm held back by group training in that regard, but I think that I do have to maybe substitute out some group training sessions, which I would have taken before, for individualized sessions, which will just be focused on my weaknesses as an athlete.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think that, again, going back to like deep down, you kind of know what you need to do, and what you're avoiding is often.
I hate it.
I know.
It's like, don't get me wrong. It's like, I know that this is what I need to do, but I love the energy in the group classes. I love being in the environment. I love engaging with the coaches. I love the music. I love the energy. It's like, I really enjoy it. And it really is like a knife and a dagger in the heart that I'm like, I know I have to do it
too fit
by myself in the back of the gym, just grinding. But it's, if you're being honest with yourself, then you know that that's where the real change.
If you want to perform and be at that level, like, this is what it takes. And so I think I'm in a similar place, and it's been a little chaotic in my own mind, because we talked about this before, but I do think such an important part of executing a strong performance in race is having trust in your training. And right now, my training is way too unstructured and chaotic that I don't really know what I'm trusting. Like, I trust that I'm fast and strong and fit, but not in the way I need to be able to trust that I can, like, push my body to the max every station and be able to run out consistently. So I've been almost like a little too cautious in some of my races, or my Houston race mainly. But yeah, I think it'll be a good 2 months of, dialing into that specific work. I think the timing is actually right, because this is our kind of final block before those next set of races into the summer. And then we're probably looking at another running specific block after that, which will be great. So structure is on the horizon.
Yes. It feels good.
It does. I'm excited about it. I was actually thinking about this earlier today. On Friday, Fridays are going to become our double threshold day, at least for me, where we do some sort of run workout in the morning, and then early afternoon or after work doing like a specific threshold style station work class with modifying those techniques, getting your heart rate up, and just practicing working at a high heart rate. So that will be awesome. Fun Fridays incoming.
Fun Fridays. That's what some would call it.
Yeah.
All right. Got anything else to add?
No, I think that's it. But, I will also shout out that I think to anyone with a training partner out there that's gotten them through some really difficult either times or seasons, like weather as well,
Give them a hug.
Yeah, give them a hug. Send this to them to show your love and appreciation for them, or send it to them as a farewell, saying you're going off on your own and the fun times are over.
This is the breakup podcast tech.
Yeah.
That's it. I've really enjoyed group training with you, but it's time for me to move into solo
I
training.
want to
so I can
perform.
Be more specific.
I want to be better.
Our paces are different now, so
I'm leaving you in my dust.
this is an unholy union now.
All right. Well, until next time.
Stay aerobic AF.